honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you, and we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Phew! What a scorcher! And that is just tonight's show. Yes, indeed, lots of debate on this evening's Mark Dolan tonight in The Big Question. Is the COVID-19 vaccine safe? We will hear from all sides on that one, including top US author Naomi Wolf and former Emmerdale star John Bowe. My Mark Meets guest is one of Ukraine's biggest TV stars, Olia Freimut. And in my big opinion, in 2 minutes' time, only Parliament and only British courts should decide Britain's border policy. Plus, my all-star panel tonight of broadcaster and PR expert Lois Perry, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, and legendary Fleet Street radio and TV journalist Mike Porky Parry. A very busy 2 hours to come. It's hot. So grab something cold from the fridge and I'll see you after the headlines with Olivia.
The Defence Secretary has defended the Prime Minister over his surprise visit to Ukraine.
Jack you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
The trip to Kyiv meant Boris Johnson had to pull out of an appearance in Doncaster for a conference of Northern Tory MPs. Ben Wallace said in-person discussions were necessary due to Russia's electronic warfare. During the visit, the Prime Minister told President Zelensky the UK will train up 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers every 120 days. Boris Johnson said it would help give Ukraine the strategic endurance it will need. Back here, the Prime Minister's former ethics advisor says he quit over concerns about the government's openness to breaking international law. In a letter clarifying his position, Lord Geit says it was an important issue of principle and he could not be party to advising on any potential law breaking. He wrote the latest letter to the chairman of the Commons Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee following debate over the reason behind his resignation. Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner have returned their questionnaires to police as the investigation continues into potential breaches of COVID restrictions. The pair were both present whilst alcoholic drinks and a takeaway curry were consumed at party offices in Durham in April 2021. Sir Keir was caught on camera drinking a beer after a day of campaigning for the local elections. The Labour Party initially denied that Ms Rayner was there. The Labour leader and his deputy have both pledged to resign if Durham Constabulary decides to fine them. Brazilian police have confirmed the human remains found in the Amazon rainforest are those of a missing British journalist. Dom Phillips disappeared earlier this month, along with his guide Bruno Pereira. A fisherman who confessed to shooting the men has been charged with their murders. And temperatures soared to a high of 32.7 degrees Celsius in Norfolk and Ascot today. But despite predictions of the hottest Royal Ascot ever, it actually just missed that title by 0.1 of a degree. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge braved the searing heat as they arrived in the parade ring. Fortunately for them, though, there was something of a westerly breeze. The Duchess was forced to hang on to her hat as she chatted to other racegoers. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. I'll be back with more later. Now it's back to Mark.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Strap yourselves in for a lively 2 hours of hot summer debate and entertainment. In the big question, is the COVID-19 vaccine safe? We'll hear from all sides on that one, including top US author Naomi Wolf and former Emmerdale star John Bowe. My Mark Meets guest is one of Ukraine's biggest TV stars, Olia Freimut. She's now living in exile and tells her incredible story at 10. When will the war in Ukraine end and will Russia lose? In the news agenda with my panel, are strikes immoral? And are shorts in the office appropriate in the hot summer months? Reacting to those stories and many more are my fantastic panel. Broadcaster and PR expert Lois Perry, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, and Fleet Street and radio legend Mike Porky Parry. Now I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. The tributes are continuing to flood in following GB News' first birthday. Here's a message from a rather famous fan.
Mark. Sounds like a dog with a hair lip, doesn't it? Mark Foxy, my good mate, tells me that you are a bit of a Neighbours fan, and which surprised me because I thought you were dead, and then I realised it wasn't Mark Dolan at all. It was Mark Dolan, two different people. Anyway, it's GB's birthday, so GB News, happy birthday to you. I hope you're going to be like my wife and celebrate your birthday all through the year, if not, just when you do. And also, I'm sending over a container load of tissues for you for the 1st of August, Mark, because I believe you're a little bit upset that Neighbours is finished. So am I. I had a career, now I'm a has-been. Oh, God. No. Anyway, there you go. That's, what's the old thing? Knock, knock. Who's there? Neighbours? Neighbours who? That's showbiz. See you guys.
My thanks to the legendary Stefan Dennis. So this show has one golden rule. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. There are many theories about what Brexit meant for the people who voted for it. Perhaps it was control of our borders, control of our money, or the principle of UK courts deciding major constitutional issues. For some, it may have been an insurance policy against ever being a member of the United States of Europe, joining a single European army, or adopting the euro as our currency. I suspect that Brexit meant different things to different people. But there is one abiding theme around which the majority who voted in the biggest plebiscite in history are united. To a man and to a woman, Brexit was about sovereignty. A desire that all of the policies, big and small, that affect our lives directly and indirectly are conceived on these shores and legislated via our national parliament and policed by our own courts. Not too much to ask, countries deciding what happens to them. The national interest and all that. Those were the days. There's nothing wrong with the European Court of Human Rights per se. It was co-created in 1959 by Winston Churchill and is still populated in part by British judges. It was, of course, designed with Germany in mind to stop another Hitler. While the court is not an EU body, parts of the Brexit deal were predicated upon continued membership of the convention. However, it all went wrong, surprise, surprise, under the leadership of one Tony Blair. Tony Blair oversaw the passing of the Human Rights Act, incorporating the European Convention on Human Rights into domestic law, which set the dangerous precedent of an international body overruling our institutions, which is why we must now urgently consider repealing it. We must have world-class human rights, which are, of course, a very British idea. But they must be compatible with our constitution and the supremacy of our courts and parliament. You can love or hate the Rwanda policy, but be clear, it was based on a manifesto promise to tackle illegal migration, which delivered Boris Johnson that astonishing 80-seat landslide victory. Britain has always been a generous and welcoming place to anyone fleeing for their lives, and it always will. It's my judgment, however, that a majority of the British public will just not tolerate the sight of chaotic and illegal crossings across the Channel, with predominantly young men chucking their paperwork and phones into the sea as they head for our shores, aided and abetted by loophole-seeking lawyers. Many cover their faces as they arrive, many abscond. Many may have a case to stay, and they must be welcomed. But we've got to have due process, not this treacherous free-for-all, which amounts to a daily humanitarian crisis in the Channel, and which bankrolls the evil gangsters for whom this effective trade in human souls is a £1 million industry. I like this tweet from our own Colin Brazier in response to the Archbishop of Canterbury's criticism of the Rwanda policy. Colin writes, "Weasel words from the Archbishop. The shame we should feel is for our complicity in a much-abused asylum system that is gamed by young men leaving genuine victims of persecution in countries they can't leave. Where's the compassion for communities where social cohesion is gone?" Oh, and by the way, it's deeply prejudicial against Rwanda that the opposition and the Archbishop of Canterbury consider Rwanda to be such a dreadful place in which to have your asylum application processed. Don't take my word for it. Here are the words of the chief spokesperson for the Rwanda government, Yolanda Makolo, in relation to this attack on Rwanda. Here's what she had to say. "The narrative that living in Africa is a punishment is insulting for those who live here and are working hard to build our countries. We want Africa to succeed. Rwanda has made tremendous progress. People should come and see." It's an inconvenient truth that Denmark have chosen the same location, and the EU have been processing asylum applications abroad for decades. Writing in the Mail, friend of the show, Dr. Rakib Ehsan, points out that the EU helped finance the hellish Al-Mabani detention centre in Libya. That's right, the EU partly bankroll this dreadful camp, where, he writes, this particularly horrifying centre reaches appalling levels of inhumanity. That's the EU, quelle surprise. And even cuddly President Joe Biden is considering sending illegal migrants trying to enter the USA to Spain to have their cases processed. Now, I don't have a clue if this Rwanda policy will work or not. And if you've got a better idea, I'm all ears. But the failure to get the Rwanda policy off the ground is not the fault of our government. It's the fault of politicised lawyers no one voted for, a recalcitrant civil service no one voted for, an Archbishop of Canterbury no one voted for, and a Her Majesty's opposition who not enough people voted for to be able to form a government at the last election. I long for a time when governments got to do the things they were actually elected to do. We flirted with a democratic crisis with talk of a second Brexit referendum, and we're now staring down the barrel of a major constitutional crisis. As columnist Alistair Heath points out in The Telegraph this week, even the Supreme Court agreed that there was no reason why the plane to Rwanda couldn't take off, But then the judges in Strasbourg swept in, reminding Britain that it isn't in charge. Funny, isn't it? It normally takes European courts months and years to reach a verdict. Surprising how it took just a few hours when it meant sticking it to Britain. It's up to the government now to flex its political and legislative muscle and to face down micromanaging European judges and remind them who runs Britain. If we have to, we should scrap all of these agreements. Anything which fundamentally threatens national sovereignty is not fit for purpose. If the will of the people is threatened in a sustained way, this doesn't end well. A majority who voted in the referendum voted to take back control. And this is not what taking back control looks like. In terms of this ridiculous Brussels verdict, the law's an ass. Blocking British laws is a pony idea, and this European court is a donkey that should be put out to pasture. Nay, nay, and thrice nay. What's your view, Mark, at gbnews.uk, reacting to that and all of the big stories of the day? Broadcaster and PR expert Lois Perry. A warm first welcome to Mark Dolan tonight to Lois. And two good friends of mine, Ingrid Tarrant, who is a journalist, radio and TV presenter, and radio and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. Great to have all three of you with me. Lois, what's your reaction to what was the big story of the week? The will of the people thwarted by European judges.
Well, it does make you Rwanda, doesn't it? Sorry, I had to get that in. Yeah, the will of the people. Sorry about that. It's disgusting, isn't it, that our sovereignty has once again been overruled like this. And we need to remember these people have come through France, which is a safe country. They've, you know, a lot of them, they're all coming here illegally. I've got no problem whatsoever with immigration, but these people are illegal immigrants. And, you know, as you say, they're throwing their documentation in the sea. It's predominantly young men. I've read things about blacked out windowed vans, collecting them and things like that. It's big business. And the Archbishop of Canterbury saying what he said, I think, is extremely irresponsible. So, yeah, I think it's disgusting.
I think, Mike Porky Parry, that if there was an election tomorrow and Boris Johnson basically saw a mandate to get this sorted, he would achieve another landslide.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, there's a huge majority in the country, I call it the silent majority, who are all for the Rwanda policy and will be infuriated by the fact that the Europeans have come in again. The Human Rights Act that Tony Blair introduced, I think it was a year after he got into power, 98, should have been scrapped the moment Labour were out of power. Gordon Brown, of course, was the last Labour MP. Because what it was basically doing was keeping the doors open for free-flowing immigrants to come to this country under the guise of the movement of labour around Europe. And what it basically did was it kept the price of labour in this country down rock bottom, and therefore the cost of living down rock bottom, which suited Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, all their mates in the city, and another very powerful lobby, and that is the lawyers, the human rights lawyers. The human rights lawyers lobby, the human rights lawyers industry is massively productive, it's powerful, it generates hundreds of millions of pounds, almost to the extent where you could say that the benefit to the people who are being illegally smuggled into this country is not just for the evil people who are putting them in the dinghies in the English Channel, it's also massively benefiting a lot of people in this country who work in that legal industry. And I have to say, because it's true, Tony Blair's own wife, Sherry, was a leading proponent of those who work in that industry, the human rights legal industry.
Ingrid, we can debate how many people should be welcomed into this country that have a claim for asylum. The issue is not the scale of migration into the country, it's the manner of it. We must have due process.
Yeah, but I think there is a scale of it too. We are really, really overcrowded. the cost to the country, the economy. I mean, with this, you know, well, first of all, we paid them 120 million to Rwanda to take them in advance. But it costs £12,000 per person to process. That's once they get there. In the meantime, it's costing us 500 million to put them up in actually quite nice accommodation. Bearing in mind as well that we also had paid France a big sum of money twice to prevent them from coming over here. They keep taking the money. I mean, they must be laughing up their sleeves at us that we get it so wrong. And as for this very last minute, you know, the European courts and everything, I think they've been working on this very, very silently and hard in the background because they absolutely knew what we were going to do. And then they scuppered it at the 11th hour. But interestingly, Denmark, they had the legislation passed last June. Now, surely it comes under the same European court process and legislation. So I don't know how, in that process, why Priti Patel didn't say, how did you manage to do that, Denmark, without anybody interfering at the last minute? Because the due diligence hasn't been done. And it's just a mess. So we are overcrowded, and the way that it's being handled is a very nice way. Rwanda is a beautiful country. I've been there, and they're dignified. But it's these interfering busybodies, and quite frankly, surely that is a better... And they have the right to work, which is very, very unusual. Only Rwanda and Uganda give a right to work. So they have a really fantastic opportunity to improve their lives, their conditions, and put all the horrors behind them. But they don't want it. Why?
We've got a lot of major news stories to get through, and before we go to the break, I've got a big question for all three of you. You've not been briefed on this, but it is the burning question of the day. I'll start with you, Lois Perry.
OK.
Is it too hot?
Yeah. It is far too hot. Yeah, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So, yeah, it is too hot.
Mike Porky Parry, are you glowing or are you sweating?
A bit of both. It's the hottest day of the year. I've got chronic hay fever, OK, which I never had as a kid. I got the late hay fever. I so hate the heat that I've been on holiday to Iceland more times I've been on holiday to the Mediterranean. Seriously. I cannot stand the heat. If I had my way now, I'd been in Buenos Aires, OK? Because, of course, it's winter over there and I could go and climb up a mountain somewhere in South America. I hate the heat. I hate having to go out in the heat. But the only exception I make to it, Mark, is to get out into the heat to get here to join your show. It's a big sacrifice for me, believe
Well,
it.
that's right. Mike Porky Parry shipped to Buenos Aires. Never say never. Ingrid, you're Scandinavian. You must be struggling in this heat.
No, I'm not. I love it, love it, love it. I always find a shady place if it gets a little bit too hot. Or I'll put my feet in cold water, or I'll drink cold water. I absolutely love it. But I like extremes. I love the cold as well, provided I'm all warm and cosy and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy. I'm not complaining. This is such a rarity.
We're not cut out for it, though, are we, Ingrid?
Well, no, we're not really too prepared, are we, in that sort of like sense. But we can always find we ought to have parasols, shouldn't we? Sort of
and little fans.
I didn't know Lois was a girl of my own heart. She absolutely hates the heat. I'm going to book an igloo for Lois and I to go with us sometime soon.
Do I not get any say in this?
He's pulled! Lois, you've pulled.
Oh, right, great, thanks. Brilliant.
Make sure you're not alone in that igloo, Lois. Although the ice will break, I'll be honest with you. What do you think, folks? Is it too hot? Mark at gbnews.uk. Lots of issues to get through in the next hour and 40 minutes. Remember, we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Coming up in the news agenda, are strikes immoral? Is it inappropriate for men to wear shorts in the workplace and women to wear low-cut tops? We'll talk about summer office apparel later in the show. We're also going to expose a horrific story of gymnastic abuse. We'll speak to Olympian Lisa Mason in what is a Mark Dolan Tonight exclusive. But next in the big question, is the COVID-19 vaccine safe? The definitive answer is on the other side of this break. Let me know your thoughts, Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll see you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
we're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A big response to my big opinion monologue. I'm very concerned about the fact that our British Parliament and British courts are being usurped by a supranational body, this time the European Court of Human Rights. It's not the same as the EU. However, it shouldn't be calling the shots over our great institutions. Well, this is the response from Alex, who says, Mark, we know for a fact that human traffickers in France were rubbing their hands together in excitement from the moment that plane was grounded. Thank you very much for that one. This from Jackie. Hello, Mark. Excuse me, I thought we'd left the EU, so why on earth can the EHRC overrule our laws? Who's paying for the human rights lawyers? Find out who they are and put hundreds of illegal immigrants living next door to them. Maybe we should all apply to live in Rwanda. There are not many illegal immigrants there. That's from Jackie. Lots more views coming in. How about this on sovereignty? Malcolm, who says, Mark, just another lie that Boris has spoken. Take back sovereignty. Ha, what a laugh. Boris wants to give up sovereignty to lots of organisations, including the WHO, to make any medical decision. Well, that takes us to our big question topic of the day. It is time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Well, this is a news story of the week and the month and the year. Tonight, with growing pressure on the government to compensate those injured or even killed as a result of side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine, we have a simple question tonight. Is the COVID-19 vaccine safe? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome virologist Professor George Lomonosov, American infectious disease physician Amish Adaglia, consultant pathologist Dr. Claire Craig, author and journalist Naomi Wolf, and actor John Bowe. Naomi has a book out. We'll be joined by Naomi shortly, and I'll let you know all about her latest book. So let's get to this. Is the COVID-19 vaccine safe? Professor George Lomonosov.
Well, of course, there are actually several different vaccines which have been used. And I think, just looking at the latest figures, a total of about 12 billion doses have been supplied worldwide. And I think it's pushing about 5 billion people have had, the full dose of them, which is getting onto a very large percentage of the population. Now, any treatment, any medical intervention, there are always some risks. But, with that sheer number, of doses administered. If there were a systematic risk and it was somehow a dangerous thing to do, and remember, of course, COVID itself is a dangerous disease, especially in the vulnerable. I think you'd be seeing several million people reporting these symptoms. But as far as I can tell, and looking at all the the data I can find, I mean, there are sad cases where individuals that there is something happens after the vaccination, whether it's directly caused, maybe you'll never know. And certainly if someone's suffering, one wants to help them. But I mean, generally, I think the vaccination program has been a very good thing. And any side effects, I mean, might be unpleasant to an individual, have been very minor compared with what, with all vaccines. There is some very slight risk.
Although, Professor Lomonosov, if the vaccine is safe, for example, the AstraZeneca vaccine, why is it not administered to those under 30 in the UK?
Well, I mean, you do get certain vaccines or certain treatments are recommended or not recommended for different groups of people. So, I mean, there's not always a panacea. You'll look at, the dose for, say, paracetamol is different for under 12s and above 12s. So you always get that kind of thing because people's immune systems are at different stages at different ages. And so, you don't administer many the COVID vaccines to young infants, possibly in that case because it's just not very effective. So there are all those kind of things. You don't tend to just have a universal formulation for everyone.
Dr. Claire Craig, is the COVID-19 vaccine as innocuous as paracetamol?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, everybody has accepted, the regulators have accepted that there were clotting problems, that the government have a document out about Guillain-Barré syndrome. We know about the myocarditis and pericarditis issues. So, there are some conditions that's absolutely accepted that there have been problems. And the real issue we have is that the problems haven't been measured. So an FOI came out today showing that the CDC had written out a protocol for what was to happen to follow up a signal. And the intention was that they would measure the incidence over time. So you see if something that was rarer has become more common. And they laid this all out very clearly, their methodology, and didn't do it. They didn't do what they said they would do to find the issues. So if they're not looking properly, you won't find them. And what we also saw was a sort of situation with the tail wagging the dog, where there were no deaths related to the vaccine, zero, until the regulators said there is this problem with the brain clots. And then we've had a handful of brain clot deaths that have been certified as being due to the vaccine. So in theory, what should happen is the doctor should be calling it out, and then the regulator can say, we've got an issue here. But the doctors are waiting for the regulator to say it before they're calling it out. And so in that situation, you can't trust the data, but you can see problems in the excess mortality. They're not huge problems, but in the young in particular, there have been too many excess deaths, and that's seen across different countries. And we've had too many cardiac arrest calls, way too many. Now, cardiac arrest calls are fairly common, so to see a signal in the cardiac arrest calls is a really big concern.
Dr. Amesh Adalja, could you tell us whether you think the COVID-19 vaccine is safe?
I think the COVID-19 vaccine is a very safe vaccine. And I think the best way to think about this is the relative risk-benefit that you get with the vaccine. You can't just look at the vaccine on its own. You have to think about what COVID-19 represents, how many millions of people that have died from it, and what the risk is of the vaccine versus the benefit you get from the vaccine. And when you look at it, yes, there are some rare side effects like brain clots that occur that are being addressed, myocarditis that's being addressed. You have to then juxtapose that to the great benefit you get from the vaccine and not look at only one side of it. Often people who talk about the safety of the vaccine don't actually mention any of the benefits, the hundreds of thousands of lives that have been saved by people who have gotten vaccinated, including myself, as soon as I was able to be vaccinated. So I think that when you look at the amount of data that's there and look at the risk and benefit, this vaccine the benefits outweigh the risk in almost every scenario that we can see, because this isn't something we're taking for no reason. We're taking it to fight COVID-19, to prevent COVID-19 from overwhelming our hospitals, and it clearly does that.
John Bowe, you've set up a charity, a GoFundMe page, I believe, that will aim to support the victims of COVID-19 vaccine injuries. What's your view about the safety of the vaccine?
I don't believe it's safe. If you will indulge me, I'd like to read an extract from an article that Dr. Tess Lawrie, who's on the committee of the World Council for Health, which I predict in the future will take over from the World Health Organization when that is finally discredited. It's a brief statement. There is a mountain of evidence, including the testimonies of so many who've been harmed, to show that these injections are not fit for purpose. They do not work, they are not safe, they systematically destroy our immune system, and they contain secret ingredients that have not been disclosed to the public, purportedly to protect pharmaceutical manufacturers' commercial interests. But what about our interests? What about informed consent? Now, all these esteemed and extremely well-qualified people have made their comments about the vaccine, but we're only talking about so far. Already we have myocarditis, pericarditis, we have terrible skin rashes and blisters, we have thromboses, blood clotting, there's some cases of spongiform encephalitis, and now certain pathologists are talking, and people who've been doing autopsies and post-mortems are suggesting that we're coming into a period of accelerated cancers and other problems.
I mean,
we don't know where this is going to go.
Well, John, when we get to accelerated cancers, are we not in the world of speculation at that point?
Yes, of course. But they're seeing it already. I don't need to justify what I'm saying because we're in a situation a bit like during the pandemic. You know, did somebody die with COVID or of COVID? This muddied the whole water. And now, because the VAERS system was a complete failure, the yellow card system is a complete failure. I mean, I don't know of any relative of mine who was asked before they were injected, here's your yellow card. Do you know about the yellow card system? Can you go to the... No one was ever asked. So this is a complete bogus assessment of what's happened to people.
George,
and I worry about where it's going.
Yeah, George Lomonosov, my personal view is that if you're 75 or 80 with a high body mass index and asthma, you'd be stark raving mad not to have the vaccine. But the vast majority of the healthy population don't need it, so why take the risk even if it's a rare one?
Well, you can probably argue about that against the vaccine, against any disease, that a given individual is probably, the odds are against you getting it. But it's all about, or in a serious way. The trouble is you continue to transmit it and you make life much worse for those who are vulnerable. I mean, they basically have
well,
to
hasn't that ship passed already, the idea that the COVID-19 vaccine stops transmission, Professor Lomonosov? Bill Gates himself, an investor in vaccines, has been, he said, quite disappointed about the fact that the vaccine doesn't stop transmission.
Well, I mean, it's not perfect, that's for sure. I mean, it's not 100% effective. So, of course, that's not going to, completely eliminate it. You'll still get it. But it does certainly seem to knock down the rate of transmission and also, of course, stop such serious diseases. And you made a comment about paracetamol. That wasn't just a facetious comment I made. There's quite a lot of people die every year through paracetamol poisoning. And it's actually, in some ways, a drug of suicide. So that, even something as apparently innocuous as that can have side effects.
Amesh Adalja, nobody has convinced me as to why the healthy population need this vaccine.
The healthy population, I recommend, get this vaccine because why suffer through COVID-19? Even if it doesn't land you in the hospital, even if you don't get severe disease, why would you want to have a more severe case of it than you needed to? Why not be on your feet faster? Why not have it be an innocuous illness? Why not have to call off work? There's so many diseases that we vaccinate for that don't have a big impact on the person getting vaccinated, but they're almost like a nuisance infection. We vaccinate for chickenpox in the United States.
Sure, but it's
so
an
I think
innocuous.
that's why I would recommend people get vaccinated.
It's an innocuous disease for most anyway. Even at the start of the pandemic, with the early COVID variants, the British government was saying that a third of people will have no symptoms. They said, act like you've got it. That doesn't sound like a virus for which everybody should be vaccinated.
Well, I think that not everybody has asymptomatic infection, and there are people who are tired, coughing, have fevers and chills. Why not prevent that? What's wrong with the vaccine? The vaccine is safe and effective. Why not prevent yourself from getting that infection? And there is some proportion of people that do get long COVID symptoms that we don't quite understand. But the thing is, we're talking about a safe and effective vaccine. This is not as if this vaccine has major side effects that outweigh its benefit. And I think, why not prevent this infection if you can prevent it with a vaccine that is easy to take?
How can it be safe and effective? How can it be safe and effective when it lasts for about 7 weeks, I believe? You can tell me whether or not that is true. Effectively lasts for about 7 weeks, and your body's filled with millions of mRNA spike proteins, which it takes the body, I believe, you can tell me whether this is true, because I'm not a doctor, you tell me whether this is true, it takes the body at least 12 to 13 months to flush these spike proteins out of the system.
That's completely not true. And what's important to remember is, yes, the protection against infection may wear off in several weeks, especially with Omicron variants. But your protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death is intact. And it does make you less likely to get infected. And I think that what's going on here is people are just minimizing the benefits of this vaccine and really only looking at the harms that they have picked up, the misinformation about this vaccine, and much of it is being asserted in the absence of evidence or in defiance of evidence.
Is it misinformation that the mRNA spike proteins cause blood clots?
What we know is that certain blood clots are occurring in people who got the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca vaccine.
Is it just coincidence?
John, let the doctor speak.
So blood clots can occur in rare circumstances with certain of the vaccines, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. But I think it's also important to remember that the virus itself causes blood clots, including strokes and pulmonary emboli and blood clots in the legs. People minimize what COVID-19 can cause and then only focus on one side of this equation when they go after these vaccines, which I think are some of the safest vaccines with the most transparency that we've ever seen. I think we're in a real danger now of attacking vaccines, attacking science and the scientists and the rationality and the reason behind them with this kind of these arbitrary assertions that are made without any kind of evidence, without any kind of experience of taking care of COVID-19 patients, which I've been doing since the very beginning of this pandemic and was in the hospital even today. I think that there's just so much wrong with this debate and the way it's being framed that I think that science is going to be under siege for some time, and we're already seeing this bleed into our influenza vaccination campaigns, our measles vaccination campaigns. This is just something that we never thought we would really be facing at this stage in the pandemic, because people actively going against science.
Well, Dr. Ajala, I completely understand what you're saying about that, but isn't it because of things like vaccine mandates, where people lost their job if they didn't get the vaccine? Surely the policy, the strategy around vaccines should have been, here's the nature of the disease, the vaccine is available, take it or leave it, as is the case with all other vaccines.
I think that the policy prescriptions of government mandating vaccines was wrong. It created a backlash. It gave a lot of the anti-vaccine people fodder. I think the vaccines sell themselves. They are so valuable that they shouldn't need to be mandated. And I think mandates by the government really have no place when it comes to vaccination. And that's a separate issue. And I think that there are major policy failures that have emboldened the anti-vaccine groups, unfortunately.
Well, yes, and I think that's the issue, isn't it, Claire Craig? It's the coercive nature of the rollout which makes people concerned about having the jab.
Absolutely. The way it's been pushed, the way that people have been patronised has meant people have totally lost faith in public health. Public health has played a terrible, terrible role with this. And I'd like to come back on two of the other points that were made, if I may. One of them is that the doctor there was trying to really emphasise the pathology caused by the spike protein, which is absolutely the case. The spike protein causes all sorts of pathology. It interacts with the endothelial cells. It causes the clotting. It can go into the brain. It's a horrible, horrible protein. And he's recommending injecting people with it. That's what he's recommending. Now, and just to talk about him claiming that it saved thousands of lives, which people keep banding around this claim, it's absolute nonsense. You just compare geographical regions next door to each other with high and low vaccination rates. We've got Eastern Europe, which has a huge range of vaccination rates, no difference in excess deaths, none. The excess deaths were the same. Israel, Palestine, massive difference. Excess deaths are the same. You can do the same with counties around the USA. You can do the same in any way. You know that the claim does not stand up. It just does not stand up.
George Lomonosov, I'm triple jabbed, but I believe it's got to be personal choice as to whether you have the vaccine. I don't think it's right that in order to travel or go to work that you should have had to have the vaccine. Personal choice has got to be the way forward. Have we not also, in the course of this pandemic, ignored the issue of natural immunity, the fact that for the healthy population to get COVID is the ultimate vaccine? You get COVID, you recover, and you have great antibodies.
Well, that was one thought that might happen, but sadly, with the various new Omicron strains, natural infections don't seem to be that great at protecting you. So people don't fully understand why the strains vary in such a way. But you can certainly get it again. And that's something which has, in a sense, been a bit disappointing, that it's not like, say, measles or chickenpox or something, that, you get lifelong immunity. And that's obviously connected to it wearing off, which will happen with the vaccine as well. So that's why you get repeated and boosted. But it is an issue. I mean, the point is about vaccines, you do give them to healthy people. They're prophylactic. I mean, you don't wait until somebody's ill. And I'll just put a contrast with the current situation. I mean, I'm old enough, to be aware of, the polio situation in the 50s. But, in the UK, I mean, people who got polio, and everyone's heard of it, and you can think of Ian Jury, the victim of polio, it was a few hundred a year. But that didn't stop people saying, we'll have a vaccination campaign against it. Because it's, we want to eliminate that. And you're giving that initially a killed vaccine, then a live attenuated one, to prevent, even those matter of hundreds a year, to prevent that horrible scourge. And so it seems an odd thing to say we don't want to do that now with diseases.
The clock is against us. Final thoughts, John Bowe?
The doctor to my right was very dismissive and didactic about misinformation and disinformation. But I always thought that science was about debate. OK, don't debate me, I'm just an actor. But debate Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Ryan Cole. Why don't we ever see those people in this debate? And you talk about myocarditis, it can be caused by COVID as well, but it's a different kind of myocarditis that you get with COVID than you get with the injections. And I got that from a cardiologist.
Yes, I mean, Dr. Adalja, I want you to share your concluding thoughts, picking up on what John has said. But also, I mean, I know it's easy to choose isolated examples, but it was well reported that the award-winning BBC radio presenter Lisa Shaw died of COVID vaccine complications. This was days after her first AstraZeneca dose. She was a slim woman in good health at the age of 44. The bottom line is, and I know it's an isolated example, but if she hadn't had the vaccine, she'd still be with us. And she, in her profile, is not someone that needed the vaccine.
I think that there are tragic cases where individuals have severe side effects, but when you're looking at the vaccine program as a whole, you have to weigh the risks and the benefits. And there are always going to be rare cases where something may happen really tragically, and as happened in the case that you're presenting. But that doesn't erase the benefit that the vaccine provides overall. And I think we've understood why the AstraZeneca vaccine has that risk. And I would just, a couple of last comments. You talked about the spike protein. The best way to get spike protein through your body is actually getting infected. So that's, if you're worried about what the spike protein does to your body, the best way to prevent that from happening is be vaccinated. And on myocarditis, it is very different, the myocarditis you get from COVID than the vaccine. The vaccine-induced myocarditis is very transient, very mild, does not cause severe complications. So it is a much better type of myocarditis to get anyway. But I think
No.
in general,
My cardiologist said exactly the opposite.
well, it is different, but it's a milder myocarditis. You can look at the data on the patients that have had myocarditis from the vaccine. It is mild. They do not have severe complications. They are transiently hospitalized, very different than myocarditis cases from COVID-19, which I've taken care of both.
A debate that will continue. What a fascinating and important conversation. I'm grateful to all of you for your good manners and ability to listen to opposing points of view. My thanks to virologist Professor George Lomonosov, US infectious disease physician Amesh Adalja, consultant pathologist Dr. Claire Craig, and actor and campaigner John Bowe, who has set up a GoFundMe page. John, what's the web page?
Charity organisation for the vaccine injured. It's justgiving.com/crowdfunding/John Bowe actor. Help us, please.
Lots more to come. After this, a shocking scandal at the heart of British athletics. Abuse of the highest order. We'll speak to a top Olympian next.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
we're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
This from Janice. Mark, we have a vaccine for flu every year and we can still catch it and we can all die from it. I've had 3 vaccines, but I'm not having any more and I'm 60. There you go. Strong views from lovely Janice. Let's crack on now. And this is another shocking story. A shocking culture of physical and emotional abuse within gymnastics has been laid bare in the most damning report ever to be published about a British Olympic sport. The White Review has exposed incidents of children as young as 7 being sat on, spat at and slapped by coaches, gaslighted, fat-shamed and refused access to food and the toilet, leading to eating disorders and mental health issues. Anne White QC's landmark 306-page report also said the cash for medals culture within British Olympic sport may have contributed to the gymnastics scandal, and she called for an overhaul of the whole system. Well, joining us to discuss this now is a British gymnast, Lisa Mason, a good friend of the show, who has competed for her country at the Commonwealth Games, European Championships, World Championships and the Olympic Games. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us exclusively on this programme. You won't be surprised by these findings.
Absolutely not. This is British gymnastics culture from the
the beginning of my career to my second comeback. So not surprising.
I mean, what did you go through, without wanting to be impertinent about your own situation? What did you go through yourself as a young gymnast?
I mean, I grew up in gymnastics from, mid 80s through to the 90s, where it was very much the norm. From the age of 7, I recall, my coach trying to get me to wear grips on bars and, them not fitting me, so I didn't want to wear them, and him punishing me by making me stay on the bars for hours until my hands ripped and bled, and then putting me down and putting surgical spirit on them, or putting AstroTurf underneath the bars. So, when I would drop my legs from a skill, I would burn my feet. So this was, all the things that were needed to be a champion back in those days. And I said, it was very strange because, we have conversations as ex-teammates and we tell stories about things that used to happen, and we laugh about it because it was just so normal for us. But it's only when you tell regular people that have never dealt with high-level sport or in gymnastics that they go, wow, that's actually crazy. That's abuse. That's not normal. Like, how are you jumping out of second-story windows to go to a chip shop to get food because you were hungry and they wouldn't let you eat? So it's a bit of it's a very tough one. It's a tough one because I feel like my era was very much, that was normalized when I made my second comeback after 2012. As much as it wasn't as prominent in the sport, there were still very much coaches that would do that.
So your argument is this culture was not necessary to create winners. If it wasn't about creating better athletes, what was this abuse about, Lisa?
I think that it was very much, the Nadia Comaneci era came in, and the Soviets came over, and, we had a lot of Russians, Romanians, Bulgarians, that was the way that they've created world, Olympic and European champions. And that was, what we aimed to achieve, and the whole aesthetic of a gymnast. I mean, we talk about women's gymnastics, it's definitely not women's gymnastics. If you look at, gymnasts, there's nothing that you can look at and say, well, that's a woman. They look like children. The overtraining and this, slowing down, puberty. And when you hit puberty, oh Lord, if you hit puberty and you get some hips and a boob on you, you're called fat, and, you're told to, reduce your intake of food or water because you're holding water, and it's all very much based on aesthetics and what you look like in a leotard. And if you look at most other sports, gymnastics is very much one of the sports that you see a lot of the female body, and it's very on show. So to nitpick at, little girls' bodies basically is what we're doing. It's something that, just like I said, it became the norm.
I know that when you returned for your second coming, you didn't take any nonsense. You were far more confident and self-possessed. Have you been left with any scars from this mentally, Lisa?
I think I've always been very strong-minded, if I'm very honest. There would definitely be, I remember going for the Olympics, and I was living at the National Centre, and I was told that I was fat and I needed to lose weight. I was 18 at the time, and I was weighing 58 kilograms. I definitely wasn't overweight in any shape or form, but I was told that I had to drop, multiple kilos. And I just got to the point where I just said, when I can't do my skills anymore, then I'll drop some weight. But there's nothing I can do. I was training 6 days a week, 8 hours a day. I'm not eating like to the extent where we're eating McDonald's all the time. No. We're in a national facility. You tell me what I'm eating most of the time anyway. So what?
Too right. Lisa, Lisa, you're a hero for all of the medals you won, and you're a hero for calling out this appalling abuse. Lots more to come on Mark Dolan tonight.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan tonight. My Mark Meets guest is one of the biggest TV stars in Ukraine. She is the host of The Voice in Ukraine, as well as many other TV hits. She's a model, author and journalist. Her name is Olia Freimut, and she'll talk about the Ukrainian situation. She's in exile here in the UK. When is this dreadful war going to end? Hear her amazing story in just a few minutes' time. In the news agenda with my panel, are strikes immoral at a time of economic crisis? And is it inappropriate to wear shorts in the office during the summer months? Find out how my team dress for work later in the hour. Plus, tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30. But straight after this, my take at 10 is all about Gary Lineker. Find out why after the headlines with Olivia Guthrie.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. Here are your latest headlines. The Defence Secretary says there's a lot of rubbish being spouted about the Prime Minister's surprise visit to Ukraine.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Boris Johnson thanked President Zelensky's troops on his visit to Kyiv after pulling out of an appearance in Doncaster at a conference of Northern Tory MPs. Ben Wallace defended the visit, saying in-person discussions were necessary due to Russia's electronic warfare. During the visit, the Prime Minister told President Zelensky the UK will train up 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers every 120 days. Back in the UK, the Prime Minister's former ethics advisor says he quit over concerns about the government's openness to breaking international law. In a letter clarifying his position, Lord Geit says it was an important issue of principle and he could not be party to advising on any potential law breaking. He wrote the latest letter to the chairman of the Commons Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee, following debate over the reason behind his resignation. Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner have returned their questionnaires to police as The investigation continues into potential breaches of COVID restrictions. The pair were both present whilst alcoholic drinks and a takeaway curry were consumed at party offices in Durham in April 2021. Sir Keir was caught on camera drinking a beer after a day of campaigning for the local elections. The Labour Party initially denied that Ms Rayner was there. The Labour leader and his deputy have both pledged to resign if Durham Constabulary decides to fine them. Brazilian police have confirmed the human remains found in the Amazon rainforest are those of a missing British journalist. Dom Phillips disappeared earlier this month, along with his guide Bruno Pereira. A fisherman who confessed to shooting the two men has been charged with their murders. And temperatures soared to a high of 32.7 degrees Celsius in Norfolk and Ascot today. But despite predictions of the hottest Royal Ascot ever, it actually just missed that title by 0.1 of a degree. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge braved the searing heat as they arrived in the parade ring. Fortunately for them, though, there was something of a westerly breeze. The Duchess was forced to hang on to her hat as she chatted to other racegoers. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark.
In just a second, I'll be dealing with eco-warrior Gary Lineker in my take at 10. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Big stories, big guests, big opinions. And tonight, high temperatures. Is it too hot? Mark at gbnews.uk. In the news agenda with my brilliant panel, we've got lots of topics to get through, including are strikes immoral? And is it inappropriate for men to wear shorts in the workplace and for women to wear revealing low-cut tops? Plus another topical game show and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. And my Mark Meets guest is one of the biggest TV stars in Ukraine, model, author and journalist Olia Freimut. But first, it's time for my take at 10. It's not easy for poor old Gary Lineker. Whilst the British public bask in soaring temperatures, this multi-millionaire potato salesman is worried about climate change. Another heatwave, he tweets, over Europe and elsewhere. Records broken year on year. We're like a cancer patient who knows there's a tumour but prefers to ignore it and hopes it goes away, even though it gets larger every day. Hashtag don't look up. Shall you tell him, or shall I, that this strange seasonal change is not climate catastrophe, but a long-established phenomenon called summer? You've got to hand it to the BBC's eco-warrior-in-chief, who does tweet endlessly about the environment. That's when he's not flying around the world with his rather rich friends, enjoying some of the most gorgeous locations on Earth. And he's endlessly concerned about the environment, except when he's driving any number of Mercedes sports cars. Quite a garage this man has. Look at that little runner. I think Mike Parry calls that a fastback. Gosh, in both photos, his T-shirt goes with the car. Nice touch. And what about this particular beach snap? You've got to say he's aging very well, but it doesn't look like it was taken in Blackpool, does it? This is a man who has endlessly defended the BBC and the licence fee, which enriches him to the tune of millions, of course, whilst jumping ship to rival BT Sport to cover their football tournaments when the Beeb don't have the rights. That's loyalty for you. Poor old Gary gets confused as well. Here tweeting that he doesn't really see the point in flags. I've tried really hard, but I just can't get excited by flags, he says. But miraculously, when paid large amounts of money to sell shirts, he's very patriotic and he loves a flag. Who knew? Gary is a laid-back silver fox. Unflappable, it seems, except he doesn't seem to enjoy debate. Take a look at this tweet. Right, I'm done with the wearisome, misinformed climate change deniers, blocking as many as possible. Sorry, Gary, that's not my style. I'm the opposite. I don't block anyone. I love free speech and I love having a right royal ding-dong with people who think differently to me. Gary is very worried about global warming. But as the Telegraph journalist Oliver Smith points out, Qatar emit the third largest amount of carbon dioxide per capita of any country in the world, around 8 times as much as the UK. That's right, 8 times as much as the UK. This journalist asks Gary Lineker whether he'll be boycotting the World Cup for that reason. Gary's response, I'll be there to report on it, not support it. I doubt many journalists that are sent to Ukraine are pro-Putin's war, but they still do their job. This is such a ridiculous argument, tweets Gary. Well, Oliver responds very cleverly with this. The BBC reported on the Tokyo Olympics from Salford in Greater Manchester. You could suggest a similar location. Unfortunately, this was a reply hidden by Gary Lineker himself. The truth hurts. Now, I'm a huge fan of Gary Lineker. He's a Leicester, Everton, Spurs and England legend. However, at GB News, I'm paid to have an opinion, and this channel is free. Gary Lineker is not paid to have an opinion, and the BBC salary and his salary come from the licence fee, an obligatory tax for anyone that wants to watch a television set, including hard-up pensioners threatened with jail for their pleasure if they don't pay. What confuses me most, however, are Gary's political tweets. I thought he worked for the Beeb and was impartial, but take a look at this. Why would you need an ethics advisor if you have no ethics? This was Gary's response to Boris Johnson's recent problems, calling Boris Johnson unethical. Could this be the self-same Gary Lineker who spent the last couple of years embroiled in a tax dispute with HMRC, who claimed he owed them £3.6 million in income tax and £1.3 million in national insurance contributions? So much for the cost of living crisis, about which Gary has, of course, been tweeting. He's even called for higher taxes for the wealthy. You couldn't make it up. I do hope all of these political tweets aren't designed to get him out of that tax bill, a theory posited by his pals at The Guardian. But I can't imagine such ill endeavour on his part. I'm sorry, Gary, but all of this is one own goal after another. Perhaps you should show woke virtue signalling the red card. The fans aren't happy and you're losing the dressing room. Reacting to that and all of the big stories of the day is my all-star panel. I'm delighted to say I've got Lois Perry, broadcaster and PR expert, journalist and TV presenter Ingrid Tarrant, and Fleet Street and radio legend Mike Porky Parry. Lois, you've had lots to say about the climate change debate. What are your thoughts about Gary Lineker's recent tweets?
Oh, God, where do I start? Well, Gary Lineker knows probably as much about climate change as I do about football, which is approximately net zero. We've actually, in 1998, there was a 0.1 degree increase from 1939, and we've been cooling for 15 years. That's probably very controversial for a lot of people, but it is backed up by a lot of scientific evidence. You know, and a recent poll with Lance Foreman, the smoked salmon king, who's a good friend of mine, he actually said on Twitter, who is the worst champagne socialist, and he actually came out top with Gary Neville close second. So yeah, I think that maybe he should stop being woke, stop virtue signalling, especially when it's at our expense with the BBC. It's he doesn't really actually have a clue what he's talking about, and as you so brilliantly pointed out, Mark, he's a complete hypocrite as well. So yeah, Gary, shut up.
Ingrid, do you? I mean, I don't imagine. Are you a big football fan?
No, not really. I used to like it sort of back in the day in kind of like the 60s time, and I knew all the footballers. 60s? Well, I was right. Am I quite old?
No, you're not.
She doesn't
you're
look
young at heart.
I did like it then, because you had really juicy, sexy-looking guys.
Sexist, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sexist.
Good.
Well,
we like a bit of sexism. Go on, go for it, Ingrid. That's fine.
Anyway, but no, I have no interest in it whatsoever now. And I absolutely, but I do know who Gary Lineker is. And I have to just say something. You said, which is quite interesting, there's a subtle difference here. You said, Gary, he should be not paid to have an opinion, but I wonder if he's paid not to have an opinion. That could be another thing the other way. Do you know what I mean? Like manipulating his little strings or something, so the opinion that he has is not the one that, you know, that I share with Lois as well. He's got to get out of this silly nonsense. But no, it's not silly nonsense. That's what he believes. I don't believe that he has a point, but I love to listen. Like you were saying, don't block people out. You learn. Listen and learn. And from that, you might think, do you know what? You might have a point. It works both ways. I'm quite stubborn in my belief in it, but I've really, really looked into it. But if he can come up with something really that he can back up with much more than the obvious, I'm prepared to listen. What a stupid thing to say. That's ignorant.
Mike Porky Parry, perhaps this is an unfair pylon on Gary Lineker.
Yeah.
His tweets about climate change are really views that are shared by probably the majority of the population and certainly the majority of the world's climate scientists.
Well, no, I'm not sure about that, Mark, at all. You know, it's Twitterati again, isn't it? But the silent majority don't really believe in it. Ingrid's made some good points. Lois has made some good points. Lois, in particular, said, look, you know, is climate change really the huge problem we all think it is? I'm not a climate change denier, but I do point out to people that the Romans used to grow vineyards in Northumberland when they were here, right?
Yeah.
And that was between the 1st and 4th century, because I believe that climate is cyclical. I believe it changes about every 1,000, 2,000...
7,000 years.
7,000 years.
I think it goes 1 degree.
So if the Romans can grow vines in Northumberland, we know this because they've been found, archaeologists have found the vineyards and all that, then it must mean it's turning round. Now, Gary Lineker and I used to get on very well. He was centre forward for Everton in the 1985-86 season. He scored 40 goals for Everton and then left and went to Barcelona. And he was quite normal in those days. What happened was, after he finished his playing career with Grampus 8, I think it was, in Tokyo, he went out to Japan, got a lot of money, good for him. He then came back, and for some bizarre reason, the BBC decided to pay him £2 million a year to sit in the seat, match of the day, and read a few cue cards. And at that time, he suddenly changed. And I think what happened was, like a lot of the metropolitan elite...
He got woked.
It's not that.
More than that.
They start to feel embarrassed about the amount of money they're earning and the wealth they've got. The metropolitan elite all get together and say, how can we sort of make ourselves look nicer?
They become apologists.
They become apologists. They grab every left-wing cause that's going. They start emphasising how kind and virtuous they are and how they dislike people who don't agree with them. And I fell out with Gary Lineker when I think it was remember the issue when he suddenly started saying that because people were questioning the age of young men who were being allowed into the country as schoolboys, but actually looked about 35 years of age and had a beard. And so people sort of put these pictures up and said, that's not a schoolboy, that guy's in his mid-30s. Gary started putting out tweets saying, this is a racist attack on innocent people. So I tweeted out something like, you know, does that come from your £2.1 million salary conscience? Or does it... And he just blocked me. And we
there you go. Doesn't like it. Block.
We haven't had...
They can't hear any difference of opinion at all. Just going back to what you were saying about the Roman period, there's actually very well documented evidence. There's lots of evidence, actually. There was medieval and a Roman warming period.
Medieval as well,
There weren't many cars around then, was there? So, you know, it's a bit of a joke.
Who was pumping all the carbon dioxide into the air in those days? Absolutely right.
Absolute scam.
Oh, well, my panel are going to return very shortly. My final thought on this is that Gary Lineker, as Mike points out, is a proper British sporting hero and a great broadcaster as well. I just don't like double standards. But what do you think, Mark, at gbnews.uk? We're travelling business class tonight with Mike, Ingrid and Lois. They will return for the papers at exactly 10:30. Plus, we'll talk about dressing for the hot weather in the office. Is it appropriate for men to wear shorts and for women to wear revealing outfits? Let me know your thoughts on that. And you'll find out how my team dress when they're at work on a hot day. We'll get to all of that, but first it's time for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, one of the biggest TV stars in Ukraine, model, author and journalist Olia Freimut, who is now living in the UK. Olia, welcome to GB News.
Mark, thank you so much for having me here.
Listen, you are a much bigger name in Ukraine than I am in the UK.
No, you showed so beautiful picture of me. I even didn't recognize it was me. Look, I look not the same as I used to look in Ukraine.
Look, it's very, very clear why you're a big star. Successful author, model, TV presenter. How did you get into the media?
It was always my dream. When I was a child, I was pretending my grandparents were my audience. I was making news for them. And then I studied in university. I became a journalist, but actually there were some problems because they didn't want me to be to work for TV. They were thinking that I'm too emotional. I always wanted to be like you, to host news.
Right.
But it was all failures. But I knocked doors, and one day I came to England actually, and it all started from BBC Ukrainian service. So they took me, and it was internship there, and that's how I started my career in Ukraine lately.
And you're in the UK at the moment. How similar is Ukrainian TV to British TV? I mean, are there parallels? Because I know that you were the star of a talk show which was the basis for the Ellen show in America.
Yes, it's failed.
Which
Sorry, well, it's failed. But I tried my best.
I mean, you created this format, right?
Yes, I did a lot of successful shows.
Yeah.
But in Ukrainian TV, our audience, they are all very, very spoiled. Very spoiled because for example, in UK, you can have shows for ages. Yeah. And audience people are very patient. In Ukraine, you have to have a new show every single season. And you need to impress your audience. You need to show the best decorations, the best music, the best everything. That's how it works in Ukraine. And it's really a very good experience for me. So now I'm full of my experience here because it's really, we have very talented people in Ukraine. Unfortunately, some of them right now all over the world. But I hope one day they'll be back to my country and we create this amazing TV we used to do.
When did you leave Ukraine?
It was before war, a few days, because it was my birthday and I took my kids and we went to France to celebrate my 40th birthday. You know, there is a belief you can't celebrate your 40th birthday because it's a bad luck.
Yeah.
So I just took my small kids and we went to Nice and I had this feeling because I took my jewelry with me and my documents, and that's it. But I didn't take anything else, just kids and my jewelry. And the war started just the day before my birthday.
There was some noise coming from Russia and the Kremlin about what they were going to do, and they were on the border. But then, Russia was saying, look, we're not going to go any further. And the world's press was reporting there's nothing to see here. But you had a feeling that something was going to happen.
Actually, that's Alistair McIntosh, Fulham CEO, I think that's his position. He sent me the message because I'm a big supporter of Fulham team. So he sent me, Ola, please, all our thoughts are with Ukraine. And I was sitting with my husband drinking wine. It was a beautiful evening in Kyiv. I say, Volodya, something going on if people from my friends who we were not speaking for a long time, sending me these messages. Say, oh, come on, it's the 21st century, it's never happened, it's impossible. But then our kids, they go to international school of Ukraine, and it was a bad sign. All teachers, all embassy members, all family from embassy, they were evacuated from Ukraine, and I realized that only Ukrainian kids are left in the classes. So I told my husband, we need to run. So no, we are not running, we are staying here. But I think if not my birthday, I don't know, we could be stuck in Kyiv, and you know what's happened to Kyiv, and 20 kilometers from Kyiv in Bucha, it's like, It's close to my house. My house actually is so close to Bucha. So.
And this is, by the way, a good life motto: never listen to your husband.
Never listen to your husband.
Always follow your instincts.
Yes.
Is your husband with you?
Right now, yes, because he had please celebrate birthday with me. So he went to celebrate my birthday and he stayed with me.
So the family are together. Your career is on hold, I guess.
I think it's over, but I'm enjoying things that no, it's not over. Of course not. I think that it's over. But I'm doing something new. Actually, I'm very proud of myself because when you're having everything, can you imagine you, Mark? You have everything, and tomorrow you're just losing your confidence. Yeah. It's really strange feeling, but I'm very proud of myself because I'm not giving up. I can see new perspectives. My problems are not problems. I don't have a tragedy. All my family members are alive. Of course, we have family in Ukraine, my mother, father, brother, sister, all of them are there. But my kids, I wake up in the morning, I kiss my kids, I make coffee with my husband, and I know that with this experience that life gave me, I definitely will be fine.
And you want to go home?
I want to go home, of course, and I will go home. But right now, when it's still bombing and I have 5 and 6 years old kids, no.
You can't do it. What are your feelings about Zelensky? Is he a great leader?
I know him because we used to work together in 1+1 TV channel.
When he was a comedian?
Yes.
Because I'm always telling my producers that you know, comedians can become presidents. So watch this space.
You have ambitions.
Well, the country's a mess, you know, could do with better leadership, but I think there's better people than me. But so you knew Zelensky. What is his character? Tell me about the guy.
About the personality, because I'm very bad in politics.
What about?
He was very good to everybody, to the person who was cleaning offices and to the president of the channel. He was always equal and very, very helpful. So even with the show Ola, we were waiting him to visit my show, but I think he had other things to happen in his life. But he was always supportive and helping, and everybody respects him. So. He is really good. And he is a good father because our kids are very in the same age group. So they were, I know that he's a very caring father.
And do you think he has the character, the persistence, the strength to win this battle?
I think if not him, then who? Yeah. You know, it's his time now. Before the war happened, everybody was looking at him, not completely trusting. Everybody loved him, but we had this feeling like, are you sure? Are you a politician? And then when war happened, oh my God, we realized that he was sent by God because of this character, because he's not a politician, so he's not this sleepy guy. He was very straightforward. And that's... Maybe I'm making mistakes in my language, sorry.
No, your English is incredible.
Sorry, but I just want to express the feelings of my country that we are very happy that at the moment he is leading this horrible war.
And you obviously, I mean, you work in the media, journalism, modelling, broadcasting. You must have been very proud to see Ukraine win the Eurovision Song Contest.
Of course, but I knew we're gonna win. I like the song, and actually I was doing interview for Sunday Express, and we were so proud because it was the first win, and then other wins will follow, of course. And thank you for supporting us. I know Great Britain was on the second place.
Yeah, well, listen, we were very happy to come second to Ukraine. A very special year, and it looks like Britain may host Eurovision next year.
Of course. I think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a proper idea to host Eurovision in places like Mariupol, because at the moment, can you imagine thinking on all these graves, all these children killed? I'm against this. I think Ukraine will be in this sorrows for a long time.
For generations, I'm sure. The clock is against us. You must come back. You're based in the UK for now.
I can tell you my address.
Please. Yeah. Do.
No, I'm listening.
How can people find out about what you do?
Yes, I'd like to maybe very soon, because right now I'm feeling that London is supporting me. I feel very safe here. I'd love to do something for Ukrainian soldiers. So maybe very soon I'll be back, Mark, and together we can collect some things to Ukrainian soldiers, okay?
Let's do that. It's a deal. We'll come back and we'll sort it and do something to support them and to give them encouragement that they will win this fight.
Thank you for having me here.
A privilege to have you on the show. And I pronounce your name, it's Ola.
Ola.
So it's Ola. So it's a very sort of, yeah, okay, there you go. See, I'll get the hang of it in the end. Wonderful stuff. My thanks to television broadcaster Ola Freimut. A fascinating conversation. Lots more to come after this. The papers with full panel reaction. Also, we'll talk about how to dress in the office when the weather is hot. And another great British game show. You want to miss it. With reaction from my all-star panel. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'll get to your emails shortly. mark@gbnews.uk. Big response to my Mark Meets guest there. The Ukrainian TV star, presenter and model. Very inspiring story, Ola Freimut. But first, we've got tomorrow's papers. And let's start with the Daily Star, shall we? And here is their front page splash. Always arresting are the Star. By royal doctor's appointment, we are not amused. Queen's Jubilee sparks 43% rise in COVID cases. That four-day party has left the nation with a headache and a cough and a sore throat. Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee celebrations saw COVID cases soar by 43%. A nasty outbreak of coronavirus. Nicely done from the team at the Daily Star. OK, let's go to The Independent next. And they are leading with the following. Health warning over sweltering heat. An alert was issued for South and East England as the temperature hit 32.7 today. But rain is forecast. Well, it would be. This is Britain. Refugees in the UK to be tagged like criminals. Migrants crossing the Channel face prosecution if they don't comply. Next up, the newspaper. Public tells Johnson, act now to help UK economy. 2/3 of voters say the government are not doing enough to tackle the cost of living crisis. A poll for the newspaper suggests a large majority of the public want more decisive action on the economy. The Chancellor is resistant to extra economic support, fearing it will push inflation over 11%. Those are the key stories on the front page of the Let's go to the Mirror now. Macca bans in the USSR. Sir Paul McCartney has axed the Beatles song Back in the USSR from his live shows in protest at Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. That'll show him.
And I think you should mention there, Mark, as well, that we are an hour away from celebrating the 80th birthday of Sir Paul McCartney. He's 80 years of age. Tomorrow, Saturday the 18th.
Let's have a McCartney lovin' in just a couple of minutes' time. Is he the greatest songwriter of all time? OK, Sebastian, where do you want to go next? Let's go to the Telegraph now. We must not bow to the strikers, say the Treasury. Giving in to pay demands will lead to more walkouts and make inflation worse. Well, that's tonight's news agenda question. Are strikes immoral at a time of economic crisis? Also, brilliant photograph of Royal Ascot, the Duchess of Cambridge wearing a polka dot dress to Royal Ascot with the Duke. OK, let's have a look at the Daily Express now. Minister urges airport staff to be more productive in the run-up to holiday season, save summer, work longer to fix flight chaos. And great friend Boris boosts the war effort with another surprise visit to Ukraine. The Guardian next. Schools, pools and libraries face massive cuts. And PM accused of showing total contempt for the North.
That's the only time I've ever agreed with the Guardian's front page. I think it was dreadful of Boris to give up on his trip to the North today.
Yes,
to rally the North and the levelling up and
fly off to Ukraine.
And to push off Ukraine. He's done the Ukraine thing. He's been a hero there once.
Well, he's doing his Churchill thing,
but he went the day after the other three went from Europe. I wanted him to go to the North and say, the North of England is full of the finest people in this country, and I'm here to support you.
Well, if he really cared about the North, he'd be encouraging fracking, so...
Well, I hope he will. I hope
well, that's right.
Tell
Obviously, Ukraine are going through living hell, but there are many people watching this show based in the north of England who are going through financial hell themselves.
Absolutely.
And charity starts
And look who
alone.
is going to hit the most. Kids.
That's right.
Schools, pools,
and those people
libraries.
in the North put him in power with an 80-seat majority, and he snubbed them today. It was terrible.
There you go. Tough love from Mike Porky Parry. Let's go to the Mail now. And the Mail are splashing with the following. William at 40, the most intimate portrait ever. Hope it's not that intimate. Family show. And Will's grief and anger over Harry. Prince William is mourning the collapse of his relationship with brother Harry, according to friends. That's an exclusive in the Mail. And last but not least, the Current Bun, the Sun newspaper. Deb's Father's Day message. Tell your dad you love him. It could be your last chance. Dame Deborah James has issued a poignant message as she prepares for an emotional Father's Day tomorrow. In an exclusive interview, the Sun writer, who's, of course, receiving end-of-life care, salutes her father, Alistair. She says, I've not always been a big one for telling Dad how much I love him, so take it from me, just say it. You never know when you might not get a chance again. She is, of course, so right. Dame Deborah James, a very impressive and inspiring woman. And, of course, they're previewing what will be Father's Day, and we're going to have a Father's Day special this Sunday on Mark Dolan tonight. You won't miss it, right? One of the aspects is the big question, which will be, do fathers
a very
still
macabre
matter?
story, isn't it? This one about this poor lady, Dame Deborah James. I mean, it's like a day-to-day report on how close is she to death now.
It's a bit macabre.
Yeah, do you find it mawkish? Do you find it inappropriate, Mike?
I'm uneasy about it. I've been in tabloid newspapers all my life, and I think that you can milk a story for what it's worth, and then you can over-milk a story, and I think this might be getting a bit over-milked.
We're obsessed in this country with beautiful women that have been killed or are dying.
Yeah.
And, you know...
Like fetishising it?
I think so, yeah. But obviously it's an extremely sad story, and I can't feel any more... It's horrific, but I must say I do agree.
But she's not the only one. This is the thing. So, it's awful. If everybody could have their story, it would be lovely, and we can all sympathise.
Right.
So it has kind of taken over from so many other people suffering in silence.
You know, like Captain Tom, for instance, he was here 1 minute and then he was gone the next. You see what I mean? It was dignified, only his family around him, and he went. I just think at some stage, the family have got to pull back and say, look, that's enough, thank you very much. Poor Dame Deborah goes into a end-of-life sort of care and all that, and then we learn a week later, sadly, she's passed away. I think that'd be much more dignified.
Well, do you not think that it's Dame... I've got to get her name right, of course, Deborah James, that, you know, this comes from her, that she's driving this. If she didn't want to do these interviews, she wouldn't be doing them.
I think she needs advice on it, though, to be honest. I mean, she's raised £5 million.
Yeah,
Brilliant
that's
thing.
wonderful.
You know, and that's done. That job is done. She's served the purpose of her going so public with her terminal illness and disease.
Do you remember when Jay Goody was doing all those interviews because she wanted to raise money for her children when she was dying of cancer?
But she raised tremendous awareness to cervical cancer.
Oh, she was wonderful. No, I'm just saying, but she was actually putting money aside, and unfortunately the HMRC nicked almost all of it.
Did they really?
Yeah, they did, because she wasn't very good, bless her heart, at keeping her books and
she
things.
had, like, tax
almost
bills.
every single penny went over to the HMRC, so...
The only sort of counterbalance to this debate would be that perhaps we're learning a lot about grief through her story, and that perhaps others who have loved ones who are going through an end-of-life process can actually be inspired by this, receive some hope.
There is an element of that.
Books that are written about this as well. Do you know, it sounds like I do sound a little bit callous, but I really don't mean to be. But I think we kind of understand it, and I think there are enough books that have been written from psychologists and all people that have experienced it themselves. I will say, though, this message is very appropriate because she is dying.
But I don't see any grief, you see. You've talked about grief. I don't see any grief. Again, she's smiling. Yesterday, I think she was at Royal Ascot. And if you looked at the picture, there were marks on her arms, you know, where she'd obviously been injected with stuff and all that kind of... And I'm just thinking, you know, maybe... I've seen enough of it.
It's a brave, happy face.
Ingrid, do you mind fiddling with your microphone because you're rustling slightly?
I'm so
You're so
sorry.
animated. That's why we love having you on the show.
Don't be rustling.
I would ask Mike to adjust your microphone, but I think that's a red rag.
Me.
No.
Thank you very much indeed.
Listen,
We've got the igloo.
I don't want a court case here. I don't want Amber Heard all over again.
No, we don't want to talk about Amber Heard. Can I just talk about the eye briefly?
Please do.
The public tells Johnson Act now to help the economy. Now, I know I bang on about fracking all the time, but if we had domestically produced energy, we would not have this rampant
inflation. We've got
inflation.
at least 2 decades of shale gas.
We've got at least, at least.
And it's a clean fossil fuel, isn't it?
It is clean, and, you know, there's lots of scare stories, mainly that have been put out by the Russians, and that's been in all the mainstream media.
Absolutely true.
It's clean. We can do it right away. I mean, I've got a petition. If you Google anti-fracking... Hang on, what is it? What's my petition? End fracking ban. Sorry, a blonde moment there. Yeah, we've got 20,000...
Glad you said that right.
Yeah, I've got 20,000 signatures at the moment, but we need 100,000 to get it debated in Parliament. So people could sign the petition, honestly, because if we had our own energy today, in the last 36 hours, Russia has reduced the amount of gas supplied through Nord Stream 1 by 60%. Germany, Italy, France, they're all suffering. They're actually using it as a bit of a negotiating tool because they haven't got permission for Nord Stream 2. So they're saying, we'll supply it through Nord Stream 2.
Wouldn't this transform the north of England?
It
all the fracking gas is around Blackpool and Lancashire, some of the poorest parts of this country. It would bring 100,000 jobs. We'd have our own sources of energy. We wouldn't be importing it from Qatar.
It's so ridiculous.
America is energy independent because
and
of
they
fracking.
pay a sixth of what we pay for their electricity.
Well, we get a lot from Scandinavia as well, but we need to be self-sufficient. Unfortunately, with our agriculture and fruit and all that side of things and dairy, there's houses there now. But I just think we've got to start really trying to work out a way to be efficient and self-sufficient and not dependent. But, you know, this is the interesting thing with Germany and Italy, who are the most dependent on Russia. The war wouldn't have been able to happen if we weren't so dependent on Russia's gas. Germany didn't want to get involved. They wouldn't have the leverage.
Germany and Italy have paid for this war.
Oh, they have,
on Russia's side, haven't they?
But funnily enough, they didn't want to. Germany didn't. They weren't happy to get involved, but they had to because they have to have full 100% agreement from NATO. All they said was they would provide with something like 7,000 helmets, and then it was poo-pooed saying, well, what about you might as well just supply us with pillowcases? Or pillows. But they didn't want to get involved.
But never mind Scholz, the present German leader, Angela Merkel, for years, just said, I know what we'll do. Sorry, I shouldn't be talking like
that. That was lovely.
That was Vladimir Putin.
But what I'm saying is, she said, we'll close down all the coal mines in Germany because...
That's a great idea. Great. Well done.
Because coal miners get dirty black faces.
Oh, we can't have that.
We'll build a big pipe and let that man Putin, who's a very reliable individual, let him send us all the gas from Russia, and we'll be totally dependent on the Soviet Union. How about that? I mean, isn't that the maddest political...
So do you think that we should frack?
Of course we should. Of course we should frack. We should be fracking now.
What if it was in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, where you live? Well, what if it was on your doorstep? Because locals don't like it, do they?
Well, what I'd do is I'd be smarter than the average bear. I'd buy the land first and then allow the fracking to happen.
The only thing that does
the Crown
concern
owns
me,
the land
though,
underneath, actually.
But what does concern me is that there have been, like, mini earthquakes and...
No, there haven't.
None.
It was misreporting.
Let me tell you, when they've been building HS2, which is something else I think should be scrapped, that'll save us 100 billion quid.
But look what we found, the archaeological find.
Oh, great, for 100 billion quid. What I'm saying is, some of the vibrations... building the tunnels, building the tunnels for HS2 underneath those constituencies in the home counties that Tory MPs will not allow the rails to go across, so they have to go under. Some of the vibrations of those tunnels are far in excess of the limits put on fracking and the vibrations caused by the fracking industry.
You're absolutely right, and the actual...
I am absolutely right.
You are absolutely right, and
make
the
a habit
actual...
of it, Mike.
the vibrations were the equivalent of coming home from, Tesco's and putting a carrier bag of shopping on the floor.
That's right.
Or sitting down hard on a chair, what?
Yeah.
And also, they're only drilling for a very, very, very short time, and then you have like a little thing, and then it's got gas coming out of it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you can't even see it. I mean, if you compare that to wind turbines, which are hideous.
They are worse because they caused major earthquakes, and actually they all upset the marine life.
And they're made in China, using electricity made from coal.
That's right.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
And steel made in China.
And you can't recycle
And then they ship them
It's
over
all about
here.
box ticking, isn't it? Well,
it is,
great debate about fracking. The earth moved for me.
Yeah.
Mike,
I think you got interested on the word vibrations, didn't you?
I did. I got fixated.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm trapped in a loveless marriage. What are you going to do? Mike, very, very briefly, just a few seconds if you can. McCartney. So he's not going to sing back in the USSR. He wants to send a message to Putin. He's 80... What, tonight or tomorrow?
He's 80 at 1 minute past midnight tonight. So tomorrow...
Birthday tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
18th of June.
Saturday, June the 18th. He is 80 years of age, OK? So he was obviously born... Sorry? Octogenarian.
No, he's a beetle.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Now, here's a question. He's 80. He's, I think, by some distance, the most successful... composer of popular music.
Absolutely.
Of the 20th century?
Yeah,
I mean, more than Cole Porter or...
No, of the 20th and 21st century. Right. But certainly him and John Lennon were the most successful songwriters of the 20th century.
Now, here's a question for you about McCartney. A misunderstood genius, somebody underappreciated by the British public?
Who, McCartney?
Yeah.
No, greatest living songwriter ever.
People think he's a bit of a numpty, don't
No.
I'm in that kind of little...
honestly, you're a disgraceful person.
I never used to, but I've changed my mind. He's actually... his behaviour and his attitude has made me think about him in that way.
What's he done?
OK, so after Lennon died, it was always Lennon-McCartney. And after he died, then he wanted to be McCartney-Lennon.
For the songwriting credits.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that.
No, sorry. Let's get this straight.
Was that Hey Jude?
No. I'm losing respect.
It was for Yesterday. For one record called Yesterday, he did not. He wrote to Yoko Ono and said, Yoko, do you mind if just for Yesterday we rebillet a song written by Paul McCartney in association with John Lennon? He just wanted to change around on Yesterday, that was all. And by the way, John Lennon said of Yesterday, he said, are you mad? I had nothing to do with Yesterday. And it nearly broke up the Beatles, because John Lennon disliked it so much, he didn't want it put on the Help LP.
Because didn't Queen have an issue like that? And then they basically changed it so that it said by Queen, didn't it?
Yeah, had a big dispute, and then all right, all of the songs are written by us.
Yeah.
McCartney, yes or no for you? Are you having McCartney, Lois?
I met him and he was really nice. So there you go.
Yeah, a real gentleman.
He was lovely. He put my ex-husband's cowboy hat on.
Wow.
Or someone had to
We've
wear.
all got a McCartney story, haven't we? I'll tell it very briefly. I was in a cafe and a lady walked past the window who looked a bit like Heather Mills McCartney, but I didn't think twice about it. And then I was outside in the park with my son afterwards, and a dog ran towards my son, a cute little dog. And then I looked up, it was McCartney's dog. McCartney then whistles to get the dog back, and he sort of whistles in my direction.
Did he whistle a Beatles
Oh, my
tune?
God, it was the most beautiful whistle you've ever heard. It was like...
Oh, Mark!
It was like... And he thought, that is the world's greatest composer. And I feel like he composed a song in my direction.
He
You know what I mean?
did.
Kind of threw a song
You
towards
inspired
me.
him.
And the rest is history. Well, happy birthday, Paul McCartney, for tomorrow. Lots more to come. In fact, we're going to squeeze in a debate about the strikes. Are they morally wrong at a time of economic crisis? Also, another great British game show. And what do you think about shorts in the office? Acceptable? Find out how my team dress after this.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Still with me, the brilliant broadcaster and PR expert Lois Perry, journalist and radio and TV presenter Ingrid Tarrant, and Fleet Street and radio legend Mike Porky Parry. Let's cover this briefly. A week of chaos awaits us as 40,000 railway staff and 13 train operators are expected to walk out as part of a 3-day train strike. The question is going on strike immoral at a time like this, at a time of economic crisis? Lois Perry.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if all the food producers and everyone went on strike. You know, people can't all go on strike because they're not happy, especially when they're earning 60 or 70 grand a year. So, yes, it is immoral. It's not fair. We're all in this together. You know, all this inflationary stuff, they're doing all right, actually. They're doing OK. I don't really get it.
The issue, Ingrid, that we've got is the country is so broke that even if there are groups who deserve pay rises, such as, for example, nurses, bottom line is the cupboard's bare.
Well, they get paid much more than nurses. And, you know, they get paid 70% higher than most people in that sector.
Yeah, and the holidays.
It's an absolute disgrace, honest to God. If there's any body of workers who should not be going on strike, it is the railway drivers.
Yeah,
They've had very strong unions for decades who've got them great wages. They still work under the most antiquated rules. Do you know that for any train driver in this country, Sunday is all overtime.
No,
Sunday is not even a working
bank
day.
holidays, yeah, that's in the
Everybody else
agreement.
in this new modern age of ours works a 7-day week. You work Sunday, I work Sunday, we all work Sunday.
It's Monday. The agreement is Monday to Saturday, overtime Sunday,
the world's
and it's
gone
voluntary.
mad. The world's gone mad.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of the world going mad, of course, we know we've had scorching temperatures. There's some debate about whether it's acceptable for men to wear shorts in the office. This is me hard at work. Check it out. We're just loading it up right now. I've got to say, my team are very well dressed, but I don't know. What do we think, Porky? I mean, you'd never get away with shorts in a newsroom.
I think that's brilliant. With a shirt and tie.
That is a disgusting image.
Would Rupert Murdoch have fired me from the newsroom?
Probably.
If I'd turned up like that?
Well, I would have fired you from the newsroom. I once sent a bloke out of a meeting and sent him home when he had shorts on. I'll tell you why, for 2 reasons. 90% of the dust on our carpet in Earth is skin falling off your body, isn't it? It's dead skin on your body. That's what dust is. That's what dust is, right? So I'm not having somebody going around with thighs, which is going around. The other guy...
I haven't got thighs. Take a look at the picture again.
Hang on.
I haven't got
Hang on. The other thing is...
I haven't got a bum.
The other thing is, these people perspire. So a guy comes in, he sits on a leather chair in my office, and all of a sudden, perspiration. I had to get the chair cleaned. I sent him home immediately and told him not to come back until he put a proper pair of trousers on, and then I would treat him as an equal professional.
Can I ask you something, though?
Yes.
So going to the skin, the shedding the skin, perspiring and sticking to the... What about a girl in a skirt or even a mini skirt?
They don't mind that.
Still,
So Ingrid,
and stick to your chair.
Ingrid, I'm very old-fashioned, and ladies don't perspire, and ladies don't shed skin.
I love it.
So don't worry about
Only a
that.
few seconds on this. Ingrid, what about ladies who wear... I mean, I've got an almost all-female team. I've got Greg and then a phenomenal female team on my show today, which is why it's been so bloody good. But they were...
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Some of my female colleagues were saying that some women wear really, really short hot pants when the weather's... So what about low-cut tops? Is that inappropriate?
No, I spent my entire life wearing low-cut tops.
But
it's never done me any harm.
To work?
Yeah.
Well, but you've got your own company. That's different.
Yeah, but I used to work for OK Magazine. I used to take out lots of middle-aged men for lunch.
And the men... Let's be honest, the men said OK.
So, Lois, you did this, and you're shamelessly admitting it was to titillate the male race, right?
Yeah.
Well, to titillate...
To
titillate weak-willed senior managers like Mike Porky Parry.
I don't think so.
For that promotion, Mike.
I don't think so. When a lady's tried that with me, it's always eye to eye. I daren't let my eyes drop 3 inches.
I was only little. I was only 19. You've got to give me a slight break.
Lois, seen pictures of you. You were never little. Well, let's have a look at temperatures around the world for our Great British Game Show. We're going to play a game of hot or not. So, the hottest part of the UK was 32 degrees. It was, I believe, central London. That is not central London. That is our first location. That's Melbourne, Australia. What temperature was Melbourne? If London was 32 degrees, is it higher or lower?
Lower.
Higher.
Higher.
It was lower. It's 14.
How
about Tokyo, Japan? So the UK was 32. What was Tokyo today?
37.
25.
Wow.
Venice, Italy, higher or lower than 32?
Lower.
Lower is right, 27.
Oh.
Dubai, higher or lower?
Oh, it's got
higher.
40.
Yeah, all right, we've got one right.
Valencia, Spain, higher or lower?
Lower.
Higher.
It is lower, 31.
Okay.
Higher or lower, Kuwait City?
Higher.
Higher.
It is 45.
Yeah.
Oh, golly.
New Zealand?
Lower.
Lower.
15.
Winter.
Exactly. It's
Vancouver,
winter.
Canada, higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower is the right answer. Los Angeles, USA?
Lower.
Higher.
It is lower, 22.
we are smashing it.
New Delhi,
they've got to be higher.
Exactly the same, 32.
Oh, wow.
Thanks to my amazing team, my brilliant panel, and we'll do it all again tomorrow at 9. Stick around, I'm presenting Headliners. See you tomorrow.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather updates. Cooler weather is on the way. If you've not enjoyed the heat today, then temperatures will be dipping this weekend. There's going to be some heavy showers around as well, but actually plenty of fine weather across northern Britain, where today there was no sign of a heat wave. Scotland, Northern Ireland, with this weather front overhead, Actually, quite a wet old morning. That weather front is introducing the colder air, but still the heat persists across the southeast, especially a balmy evening here and across the Midlands, much of South Wales. Turning quite misty and murky around the coast in the southwest, and more clouds spilling into northern England, North Wales, even a little bit of rain here. And certainly there'll be some rain showers in the far northwest, where it will be quite gusty, but a much more comfortable night across the north, with temperatures down to single figures. Another pretty warm one in the south, and particularly the southeast, really quite humid and oppressive conditions for sleeping through the night. As we go through Saturday, a very different story over the Midlands and Wales. Some heavy downpours likely here and significantly cooler. It will still be quite warm and humid in the southeast, probably staying dry here, but more cloud than today. Generally fine across northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, a pleasant day, bright and breezy, but some showers in the far northwest. But look at those temperatures, certainly over the Midlands, much of Wales, well down on today, getting still close to 30 Celsius across parts of the southeast. Even here, though, we will see increasing cloud and the likelihood of some showers as we go through Saturday night and into Sunday. Some of the showers could be pretty heavy across parts of Wales, southwest England, potential for 1 or 2 thunderstorms, and then into Sunday, a continued risk in southernmost counties of further showers. Hit and miss, some uncertainty about how far north they get, but a very different feel here. Whereas from the Midlands northwards, bar a few showers in the far north, Scotland, most places dry and bright with sunny spells. But we've lost the heat. Look at these temperatures, back in the high teens at best. So the heat wave disappearing, much more comfortable for most of us by Sunday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, and the left fights the right, and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11.